Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United here on what is a very eventful Thursday. Thank you to Sam for bearing through the pain of having to review that result. Did a thoroughly good job on his own there. And we're sort of picking up the pieces. My name's Kieran. I'm joined this episode by Tom and Toluwa, who are ready to brunt the pain of what was. We've had some time to let this stew. We've had that 2-0 result that sent us now down to 16th. Thank goodness Tottenham lost, because otherwise we would be literally worst of the rest. I'll start with you, Tom, because, looking at the stats, looking at the way we played, it seemed like there was a magnet pointing the other way in the goal, but where did it go wrong?
The lack of clinicalness is the best way to put it, which has been the emphasis of Manchester United's season, is that lack of killer instincts. The players we've got are just not good enough in front of goal. It's as simple as that. Rasmus Højlund, as much as we've been trying to back him, I think he's proven he isn't what Manchester United are after at this moment in time. So it's going to come down to, where do United look at in the summer? Do they look at Liam Delap? Or are they looking at Matheus Cunha, who looks like he's on his way there, but wait until the end of the season before anything gets put pen to paper on that potential deal? Even one transfer window isn't going to resolve Manchester United's problems right here and there. It's going to take, at the very minimum, 3 or 4.
And it's 3 or 4 transfer windows away, yet we've had 11 years to sort of get to grips with the fact that there's no more Ferguson. And I think that's what winds me up. And it's been a hot topic on this show about, transfer targets and transfer strategies, which, the past 2 windows we've improved at. But Toluwa, I just want to ask you the same question before we move on. And, what was your take on the 2-0 loss to West Ham? What did you take away from it?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Tom. It was just a lack of cutting edge. I think the problem with United, probably not even just this season, but the past 2 seasons, is just that in front of goal, we just suffer. We lack. For some reason, there's just nobody there that can really take the players by the scruff of the neck and kind of instill that confidence in them in front of goal. I feel like we're always relying on the individual moment with Bruno, or we're relying on an individual moment from Ahmad, but there's no real run of consistency within our forward line. And then also on the West Ham game, it's the same old story. Constant, silly mistakes defensively. We lose the ball in midfield, and it looks like the players don't know what to do in transition when the other team is countering. And it's just worrying. It's worrying to see that, because these are established professionals. These aren't kids. Ugarte loses the ball, and then Lindelof tracks back, but he's caught in an island. It's a 2v1. And I'm starting to really question what the players do defensively in training, because I know that the impetus is to go forward and to score goals and to be entertaining. But at the same time, if you want to win a championship, you want to win a title, you want to win a Europa League, you have to be solid at the back. And for some reason, we just have no clue what we're doing defensively. And it's worrying. It's very worrying, because, like Tom said, it's going to take 3 or 4 winter windows, if we even have the money, to try and rebuild the squad. But a lot of the players here aren't really going to give us a lot of value in terms of money. It's going to be very difficult to rebuild if we're not winning competitions, if we're not placing, higher in the Premier League, getting prize money. It's just a worrying time for United, but, we've been through this already. We already know what to expect. So,
what you've said there perfectly summarises what Ferguson said in his time at Manchester United, and the fact that attack wins you games and defence wins you titles. And nothing more could be summed up by that right now. Yes, the attack is flailing and fleeting at the moment, with Højlund not being able to fire on cylinders, Chel-See out for what is now the rest of the season. Garnacho is missing chances, not consistent. We've got Rashford out on loan. Ahmad, I'd like to think, is coming back up to fitness, but I think the priority is to put him in bubble wrap for the Europa League final. And there was this essence, Tom, that, Amram said it before, our season is done. Like, we've only got the Europa League. Is this a case of now, having a look at rotation, he had Bayern Deer in goal. In terms of rotation, there wasn't actually a lot of it, considering the fact that we're so focused on the Europa League final, and yet we still lost this game.
And it paid the price by the fact that Yoro got injured in that game against West Ham, which was a bit silly from Amorim to just play him to begin with. I know he wants to rest Maguire, but this is the kind of magnitude of a match against West Ham, who, in my point of view, are the kind of side that score from set pieces. That's when you need Maguire in for, and I don't think Yoro really needed to be involved in that game whatsoever. So I do criticise Amorim for that. And whether it be fit enough for the Europa League final, I really don't know now, because it feels to me like we could well be fielding Lindelof, Maguire, and Matsraoui in that back three, with Shaw being put into that left wing back role and pushing Dorgu onto the right hand side. Which you're kind of putting two players at least out of position from where they should be at.
Yeah, and when Amorim was asked, I believe today, according to to Adam Marshall of Manchester United website, when asked about the likes of Matthijs de Ligt, Aiden Heaven, Lenny Yoro, there was no sign of them at Carrington on Wednesday during the training session. He said, "I don't know if they're going to be available. We're going to try and push because it's the final matches, and this is a final. All the players want that really bad. I think they will not go to Chel-See, but we'll have the possibility of some of them in the final." Yeah, Toluwa, it's not ideal to have a defence that's already a little bit hampered at the moment. And I go back to Licha getting injured with that. I think it was collateral ligament injury. Can't remember if it was MCL, LCL. Either way, rules him out for a couple of months. I feel like it's not a case of this defence was bad and it was patched over with Martinez. It wasn't the greatest, but I feel like we've taken such a step down since he got injured.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad to say because Martinez wasn't in the greatest run of form before his injury. He was kind of going through a rough patch. And it's just a difficult time for the back line. Obviously, going from Ten Hag to Amorim, going into a new system, trying to figure all of those things out, and then boom, to get injured is probably one of the worst things that could have happened. And I would say a lot of United fans would agree that Licha is by far one of our best defenders. And it's crazy because, he's a World Cup winner with Argentina. And, he brings a lot of quality to the side, but the rest of the team severely lacks. If he's injured, then we're trying to rely on de Ligt, Maguire, Yoro. But de Ligt and Yoro seem to get injured a lot too. And I agree with Tom 100%. I don't see the reason why Amorim played so many of our starters in that West Ham game, knowing exactly what's at stake. I feel like you said, the Premier League is done. So it's just another case of poor recruitment, I think. I think de Ligt and Yoro have been great signings in terms of quality on the pitch. I know de Ligt and Yoro kind of took them a little bit of time to get up to speed with the league. But once they finally got settled in, it looked like, they were sure in for the starting 11, but they just can't stay fit. And we seem to sign players that just can never stay fit. And if we're trying to compete on multiple fronts, going the distance in the Premier League or Europe or this, and we need players that are ready and available. Not just ready and available, but also have quality. So
that would be nice. Yeah,
that'd be very nice. Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. It seems like we're taking 2 steps back every time we take 1 step forward. And if we don't win the Europa League, it's gonna be something. I know right now we're focusing on the game in front of us with Chel-See, but I mean, right now all I can think about is if we don't win the Europa League, where do we go from there?
When we first started this podcast all the way back in the summer, say July, August, one of the first things I said was, "Oh no, we're Tottenham." So Tottenham catching strays there. We've now got them in the Europa League final. If this all comes full circle and we're the reason Tottenham win a trophy for the first time since 2008, I don't know. Would I retire? I don't know. That'd be me. I've been a horrible curse all the way through. But yeah, with that victory for West Ham, they managed to reach the magical 40 points. Believe it or not, United still haven't. When we come back, there's 2 more chances to get to that magical 40-point barrier, but one of the toughest opponents we'll face so far this season. We'll be back after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
So Premier League game coming up against Chelsea, away at Stamford Bridge on the 16th of May. And Chelsea come into this game in, well, I will say interesting form. That's the word I'm going to use. If we have a look at their last few games in the Premier League, their last game against Newcastle, they had a man down, Nico Jackson getting sent off. Newcastle went on to win 2-0. Obviously, they beat Djurgårdens over two legs, 5-1 on aggregate. They got a 3-1 win against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. They also beat the other side of Liverpool in Everton at home, one on the road to Fulham. So in theory, what we're seeing here is Newcastle might actually be the blip in this. Tom, they haven't really, set the world alight this season, and yet they're still with an outside chance of getting second at Chelsea.
It's an interesting season, isn't it? It underlines the fact that Liverpool have been by far the best team, even though it may not feel to some people that Liverpool are like the best of the best champions. But Chelsea have been in really interesting form, somewhat interrupted by their commitments in the Conference League, of which they're playing in the final in Wrocław against Real Betis, who are going to be no easy opposition by any means, especially with Manuel Pellegrini in charge. So where do Chelsea's eggs go in the basket for? Do they go in the basket for these two Premier League games that could decide whether they're in the Champions League or not? Or do they go in the basket for, or how many of them go in the basket for the Conference League final to win a major trophy, but would only get them into the Europa League if they don't qualify for the Champions League by finishing in the top 5? But so Chelsea's dilemma is a lot more difficult to decide, whereas for United, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, we just have the dilemma of, who's not injured, I guess, would be that one. But Toluwa, this is going to be a strong Chelsea side, I think, no matter what, because as you rightly said, Tom, to win the Conference League gets you a spot in the Europa League. But if they can qualify for the Champions League by the league, they surely prioritise that. But then if they don't win the Conference League, Chelsea, they won't hear the end of it. So they're sort of between a rock and a hard place. I think they're just going to throw all their best players at all the games and see what happens. But right now they are 5th place, and right now that is a Champions League spot. It was confirmed by UEFA earlier on this year as to the fact that now England has an extra coefficient for the Champions League because of their performance this season in the Champions League. So they are 5th right now. They are 5 points away from 5 points away from Arsenal in 2nd place. So there's still outside chance, but they have to win against United and hope Arsenal lose.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. Chelsea are going to throw all their best talent at United. They're going to throw all their best talent for the Conference League final. You kind of hit the nail on the head. If they don't win the Conference League final, then there's going to be an uproar no matter what, because that's a competition that a team of their caliber is expected to win. But if they don't get Champions League, then the season is a failure, pretty much. With all the money that they've spent, all the time and resources, the amount of players that they have, the squad depth that they have, they should be making top 4, let alone this extra 5th spot. So it's a tricky one for Chelsea. I think Maresca has a lot to think about in the next couple of weeks, obviously, because the game against United on tomorrow is so important for their season. And like you said, for us, it's not really a game that we really, I feel like, should care about too much. I mean, of course, we want to win every game. But I think the reality of the situation is no matter what we do now, it's Europa League or bust. So for Chelsea, all the best players, all the talent, all the impetus is going to come. And I think it's going to come from probably midfield. I feel like our midfield is so weak. Enzo Maresca is going to try and exploit that. And like Tom said, Betis is not going to be an easy team. I mean, look at the way that Antony's playing. Look at the way that Isco's playing. Look at the way that the current crop of players is performing in that European competition. So it's going to be difficult. But I think Chelsea have enough to get through. It's just whether or not they're consistent. Because, like you said, they're able to beat Liverpool, and then the next week they're not able to beat Newcastle. And Newcastle is by no means an easy team. But I would say pound for pound, you would argue that Chelsea have the better squad.
That's an interesting one. So I think Newcastle have been really good, like especially towards the back end of this season. They've been in phenomenal form. Forest have slightly tapered away, but that's to be expected because they've had such a great season. They just want to get this over the line and get Champions League football. I don't actually think Newcastle are a bad side. You know, they're the League Cup winners. They've now got a trophy. They've sort of broken that duck for a few years. And they're riding high on it, and why not? The thing is as well, who Chelsea might start up top, and this might sound like it's a Chelsea podcast right now, but we're trying to get in the mindset here because Nico Jackson's suspended for the game, and he would have been sort of the go-to, the man who, I don't know what to make of him. He can turn up in the games that you really don't want him to turn up in. And if he weren't suspended, I would have backed him to score in this one. But Tom, what should we expect from Chelsea, from a side that are, as we said, which basket are they going to go for? Are they going to go for the Conference League trophy? Are they going to go for qualification for the Champions League by the league? Or perhaps both at the same time?
Chelsea have got 9 days after the Man United game before they play Forest, and then they travel to Wrocław for the Conference League final. This is a game that they have to win, because the last game they are up against in the Premier League is at Nottingham Forest. They will not want to be going to the City Ground needing a win, because now they're pretty much equaling or putting more eggs in the basket on that, knowing that there is a risk of getting players injured in that before they travel to Wrocław for the Conference League final. This is a game they cannot afford to drop points in, Chelsea, and I expect them to go all out to win this one rather comfortably, especially when you got Cole Palmer in your team. Is Cole Palmer still fit, by the way? That's
a good question. I think so. I haven't heard anything otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at where they are. So Cole Palmer's on 15 goals this season. Remember, in the corresponding fixture last season, he got a hat-trick against us.
You didn't have to remind me of that.
Yeah, well, this is what he can do. And now that Nico Jackson's injured, this is a chance for Cole Palmer to really shine for Chelsea. And I expect him to get the better of the defence that we are potentially going to end up putting out, because I expect to see a youngster put in that back line. I don't think... I wouldn't start Matsurawi. I wouldn't bother starting Matsurawi. If you're going to get another centre half potentially injured in that game, United are in a heap of trouble. It's bad enough you go to Chelsea and get beat comprehensively, but it's hardly relevant to United anyway. We've got a Europa League final to focus on, which is next week. It's only 5 days after the Chelsea game. So you've got to get your priorities right and not try and risk too many players that we need for Bilbao.
I also remember at the start of the podcast when I said, remember when it was the worst season ever, when we finished sort of 8th or 9th? It was the worst Premier League season of all time, and now we're very much bottom half. We could very realistically finish 17th at this point in the season with 2 to go. I never really knew how good we had it. And to reflect on that after this break, we're going to have to see and predict an 11 between us for the United squad to face Chelsea. Should be a good one, so join us after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
So roll up. Let's see what we can muster up in our penultimate Premier League game of the season away at Stamford Bridge on Friday night. This should be a good one. Toluwa, I'm going to start with you because the matter of goalkeeper we thought was cut and dry. Maybe not so much cut and dry. What about for you?
Yeah, I think for this game, he's 100% going to start Onana. Amarim definitely will still treat this game as an important match, even though probably in the back of his mind, he's going to know that he's going to have to rest his key players. But at the end of the day, he still wants to save face. He comes out with pretty much 1,000 interviews a day for United, saying how he's embarrassed at the status of the club. He doesn't wish for us to be in this position. So that tells me that he's a manager that still has this importance on games like this. This isn't just a one-off game, to him at least. To us, we know that the Europa League is way more important. But for him, seeing the recent performances of Bayern Deer, not to say that any of those goals were particularly his fault, but I think he's going to put his trust in Onana. And if Onana can have a good game against Chelsea, it'll definitely set him up for the Europa League final, give him some confidence, and hopefully he'll perform in that game as well.
Yeah, it could be shooting practice, so worth getting the practice in. Tom, how about you for goalkeeper?
I'm on the fence with this one. I wouldn't mind either way for this match. I'm tempted to put Bayern Deer in goal for this one. I just think I feel like Bayern Deer has struggled to settle into the Premier League, and I think he needs a few more games before United ultimately decides is it worth giving him a go more regularly next season. So with all the dead rubber games we've got left against Chelsea and Villa, I'd probably put Bayern Deer in between the sticks and rest Onana.
Interesting. I would be on the fence as well if Bayern Deer wasn't 27. I think at 27 as a goalkeeper, you've got to have established yourself at some point. And yes, you argue the fact that if you look at statistics and you look at averages, goalkeepers normally reach their peak in their early 30s. But for a club at Manchester United to have a keeper at 27 years old, you've got to be thinking, why are they not breaking in, or why are they not breaking through? I would say, to counteract my own point, we had Victor Valdez and we had Sergio Romero. Again, Victor Valdez played for United. Remember that? Yeah. But both happy to be backup keepers in their early 30s. And this was the thing, early to mid 30s. They were happy to be the backups. Eventually, Romero wanted to move on because he wanted more playing time. But at 27, if he hasn't proven yet he should be challenging for that starting position, we've got to start questioning when he would. For that reason, I think Onana is going to start, because I think this is all about building match fitness as well in keepers, and I think Onana makes the most sense. Perhaps Bayern Deer would start instead in goal against Villa. I just don't see it against Chelsea. Let's have a look at the back line then. So in terms of defenders, obviously we know Yoro is a doubt. We know De Ligt is a doubt. Heaven is out. Dalot is likely out. And of course, Martinez out with that long-term injury. So we're picking at scraps here. I'll come to you first, Tom. What do you think about centre-backs?
Well, we're low on options there, aren't we? Unless we start fielding the youngsters for. I'd probably say that Lindelof will start. It'll probably end up being Maguire. And I'm going to say Fredrickson will start alongside those two. I think we need to try and push Matsurawi still on the right wing-back role, but it's just the fact that we don't have any other options in right wing-back other than him and Dalot is obviously injured. I would not want to put Dorgu on that right-hand side.
Fair enough. Toluwa, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most expected of the back three. Definitely Lindelof, which Lindelof is just... It just makes me so sad. I mean, I used to love Lindelof, but it's clear that over the years, his decline has just been so rapid. I feel like the game and the pace of the game has completely gone by him. But like Tom said, we have no options unless we play a back three of academy players. We literally have no choice. So Lindelof definitely gets to start. As much as I don't really like Maguire, I kind of want to save him as well for Europa League. Because if Maguire was to get injured, then, I mean... I know Mazraoui is huge on the right-hand side of the center-back role, but Maguire, that aerial impact that he has for us could literally win us a game from a set piece. And if we were to lose him, then our back line has no hope in that final.
Can I mention something as well, Toluwa?
Yeah.
Do you remember 4 years ago, it was the Europa League final and Maguire was injured and he was like our top centre-half of which we needed for that final. They could have made that difference. Do they tend to risk Maguire for this game, knowing that there's a chance that we could end up playing Maguire in the Europa League final next week?
I think so. I mean, like I said, with Amarim, he's such a manager that even in a game like this, where for the fans, it's not really important, regardless because of the Europa League, how big that is. Amorim is a big game manager. He likes to play his big players in big games. And I feel like he's going to risk Maguire. If it was up to me, I wouldn't. I'm wondering, maybe give Johnny Evans a go, but that's not going to happen. I feel like he's so...
To burst that bubble, Toluwa, I think he's injured as well. So we
he's
might
injured.
not see him.
So then we really have no choice. I mean, I think Maguire is definitely going to play. Not something that I would like to see, but hopefully he can get, 50, 60 minutes. And regardless of the result, we could just take him out. And I think Fredrickson, obviously, because we're so limited. Maybe Luke Shaw might get a run at left center back. That could be an option as well, because I don't see him playing as a wing back in this game, especially for a full 90. I think Amorim's going to want to protect him as well for the final. So I think Amas is going to start again in the wing back position, which I'm very iffy on Amas because, he's still a youngster, kind of weak, but he has so much room to grow. And to be fair with Tom, Dorgu on the right wing back is that's just not it for me. I'm sorry. It's not. But it's either you have Dorgu or you have Ahmad. And I don't really want to see Ahmad's forward presence be wasted because he has to track back and defend, which he's not very good at, by the way. So if I had to go for it, I'd agree with the back three that Tom said. Probably Amas and, unfortunately, Dorgu to start on the right.
I like how you prefaced it with "unfortunately." Full faith, especially after this season. No, I completely agree with you. I think that's a solid enough back three. I would probably go with Lindelof, Fredrickson, and Mazraoui at the centre backs. I just think I don't want to see him start. But I think he will start Ahmad at the right wing back role. Yeah. I don't want to see it, but I think it will happen because, as you say, Dorgu at the right wing back doesn't work. It hasn't worked, and I think with Dalot out, who would have started there, I just think Mazraoui at that point is not considered right wing back material. He's more considered right centre back, which that's absolutely fine. And then I think Amas maybe on the left. The decision is whether Luke Shaw would start, because of course he did start against West Ham, but again it's Luke Shaw. I don't know, day to day his injuries have plagued him for 40% of his Manchester United career, which is an insane statistic. So I think you're right. Amas will probably start that wing back role. So the back five is there. Now moving on to holding midfielders. Then this has pretty much sparked debate the whole season. But Tom, how do you see the holding midfield lining up?
I would leave Casemiro out of this one. I know he would be a good game player for a game like this, but at this stage of the season, when it's no longer relevant, I'd just leave Casemiro out. We don't want him, being unfit for the final and then not being able to use him. So I would rest Casemiro. I'll put him on the bench for this one. Eriksen would start for me, and I'd probably maybe start Mainu alongside Eriksen, because I don't think I'd probably maybe put Mainu in, just add a little bit of stability in that 6. With Harry Ramos next to him in that left CDM role. So I would go with Mainu and Eriksen for that.
Toluwa, let's hear your holding midfield.
Yeah, I agree with Eriksen. I think this is the perfect game for him to come in and kind of take control of the midfield. He's so good at picking out a pass, which is what we need. We need to unlock Chelsea's defense no matter what. I think Ugarte is going to start just because it's so important, like Tom said, to keep Casemiro fit for the final. Casemiro is such an important player for us this season in Europe. And I feel like in the Premier League, he's kind of looked at as a sidekick. He's not really played often, as much as he should, especially. I think Ugarte is perfect for this game if Eriksen is alongside him, only because Ugarte can win the ball back so well. But his passing is so poor. And if we have somebody like, for example, Mainu and Ugarte, that midfield is just going to get ran through by Chelsea, in my opinion. Ugarte is not good enough on the ball to keep the ball and progress it. And Mainu is not physical enough to withstand the back and forth 90 minutes that Chelsea is definitely going to play us. They're going to run at us. They're going to harry us for every ball. Eriksen by no means is physical either, but I think his experience and technicality is still levels ahead of Mainu, who right now is still developing, still kind of getting used to the system as well, because we've seen him play in the 10, we've seen him play in the holding. He doesn't really have a solidified spot yet in Amorim's system. So I think Eriksen and Ugarte would probably be the best option, especially if we're trying to rest Casemiro, we're trying to rest Bruno, which he probably won't rest Bruno, but that's for a forward, front three conversation.
Yeah. We'll get on to that in a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you, Toluwa. I think it's Agate and Ericsson. And I just think in a game like this, even if we're rotating players, I hope Amram's learned that the destroyer and the deep line playmaker can work. It can work because you've got, a player covering each other's weakness. Ericsson can't defend. That's fine. He's never been a defensive midfielder who's needed to defend. He hasn't been that for his whole career. Agate, his passing's been a little lackluster. His vision's not quite there. But when he's harrying opponents and putting tackles in and stopping attacks, even if they're fouls, stopping a counter-attack, he's been okay at that this season. So I do think Casemiro will get rested. I agree with that. And I think that holding midfield is going to be Agate and Ericsson, which leaves us with our front three. Let's get it all in there because this is going to be interesting. Where do we go from this? And I think Fernandes gets benched. And I think it's going to be Mainu and Garnacho who start in that attacking midfield. And I can see it happening. I can see potentially, Amram's throwing anything at this to make it work. And these are two players that need a game under their belt. We saw Mainu pretty much help us get 1 foot back in the tie against Lyon. We've needed him at some points this season, and playing him further forward just makes a lot more sense with me. I don't like him deeper in the midfield like I like Fernandes deeper in the midfield if he plays there. I think he's better higher up the pitches, mainly. We unlock better things from him. So with my two attacking midfielders out of the way, I'll hand it over to Tom.
I think it'll end up being Mount and Garnacho. I think Mason Mount could do with some more minutes under his belt just to get him ready for the final. Because I still don't feel he is match fit yet. But I think if you're given game time in this one to go alongside the amount of training session time he's had this week, will put him in better stead for the final. And I think he'll be alongside Garnacho. And I'll agree with you that Fernandes will end up being benched for this.
Toluwa?
Yeah. I think I'd have to agree as well. I like Mason Mount starting in this game. I think he showed glimpses of quality against West Ham. His passing range is still there. He's still good on the ball, still makes great runs off the ball. And I think he's an ideal 10 in the system that Amorim wants to play. I think also Garnacho is probably perfect for this game because he can exploit Chelsea's wingbacks going forward. And on the counterattack, he is pretty devastating if he's on his game, if he's going to be consistent. That's the key thing. I agree with you guys. I think Bruno should be benched. Will he be benched? That's a question for Amorim. I don't know, because Amorim just doesn't. Sometimes I just question why in certain games he plays his best players. And Bruno has been one of our most consistent players for the past 5-6 seasons. And this is the type of game where he should come off the bench. And if we need him, impact the game. But starting from the very off, I agree, is not a smart idea. So I'd agree. I think Mason Mount and Garnacho. I would love to see Mainu, though. I just feel like if we were to start Mainu and Mount, we'd have no pace up top. And I think we need somebody who can hit Chelsea on the counter. And that is a Garnacho type player.
And then, so we'll stick with you then. Who's up top?
I haven't
got many
Cheeto.
options.
It's got to be Cheeto. It's got to be. I know this is a big game and he's young, but Højlund is so out of form. And if we were to lose Højlund in this game to injury, then we have no striker for sure, because Cheeto can't be registered for the Europa League. And Zirkzee, like you said earlier in the podcast, is out for the remainder of the season. So at that point, we'd actually have no option up front. And as bad as Højlund has been, I'd rather have somebody who's done it in the Champions League. I know, that season that he scored 5-6 goals in the Champions League group stage, we got knocked out. But Højlund has proven that he can score goals in important games. I know right now his confidence is shot. His ability looks really, really low, but we need him. I know it's crazy to say. And I was going to say something earlier about the right wing back spot, because so many fans were hating on Diogo Dalot. But how important would Dalot be right now for this team? Especially because we have nobody else at wing back. So I'm thinking the same thing for Højlund. And I think Cheeto has to start, get some minutes under his belt, play against experienced top level players. that Chelsea has, gain that experience, so that next season he probably will be, how would I say this, an option for Amarim off the bench instead of having to look elsewhere. Obviously, we still need a striker in the summer, but Obi has such immense talent. Every time I've seen him come on, he impacts the game instantly compared to Højlund playing for 60, 70 minutes. So I'd love to see him start. And if he doesn't, I'm sure the United fans will definitely they'll be upset.
Tom, who's up top for you?
I'm going to agree with Toluwa. I think Obi deserves to be starting. It'd be really, really daft if Amarin decided to play Højlund or even start him, because he gets injured, we are in big trouble going into the final with no recognised striker able to start. It's probably going to end up being Kobe Mainoo and starting as striker in the final, just as he did in a particular Premier League game which we lost. I think it was Crystal Palace, where he played as a number 9 at some point in the match and it didn't quite work. So Chidirobi gets the nod for me for Chelsea tomorrow on Friday.
I'm going to make it a hat-trick then, which is weird to say. We haven't seen one of those in a while. I'm going to make a hat-trick and say Obi to start. Again, you're both hitting the nail on the head. It just makes sense to have our only registered striker, fit registered striker in the Europa League, not start this Premier League game where nothing is on the line. Give Obi the start, see what he can do, and who knows? Who knows what might happen? Which brings us on to, I think, the moment we've all been dreading, the score predictions. Tom, over to you.
It'll be a 4-0 win to Chelsea. It's going to be brutal. I can see it.
Oh, I didn't like that one bit, but I can't really see any fault in it. Toluwa?
Yeah, I mean, if we're conceding 4 goals to Brentford, if we're conceding the goals that we conceded against West Ham, I mean, it could even be more than 4. But if I had to give a score, I'm going to be a little generous. I'll give United Chelsea to win 3-1.
3-1. Okay, so both
I feel like
losses.
that's generous.
I'm gonna make another hat trick in United losses, purely because we're just going to say, well, I don't care about this game, when really we really do care about this game. I'm probably going to say 4. I'm going to go 4-2. I think it's going to be a bit of a goal fest, but for all the wrong reasons. I don't think they're going to be good United goals. They're just going to be lump it up and hope something happens. But hey, we might get 2 goals. Who knows? So from your most optimistic hosts here on the Daily Manchester United, we've all predicted losses for Friday. So you could probably skip game week 37. You already know what happens. In the meantime, though, hopefully you have enjoyed this podcast episode. If you want to hear more, we're on Spotify and Apple. And if you're already there, you can watch our episodes on YouTube as well. It's at Daily Manchester United podcast. So go and head over there. Watch out for that GSPN Daily Manchester United logo, and you can watch all of the episodes to your heart's content. If you want to start a conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you. We're on all the social medias at GSPN Man United. We're on X and Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're on TikTok. So go start a conversation with us about, no, silly, why are you playing Mainoo up top, Kieran? Well, you can discuss with me there. Toluwa, Tom, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. We'll probably all be back when we have to face off against Chelsea straight after the game. Oh boy, you won't want to miss that one. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you on Friday. Take care.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.